welcome to the Divine Feminines podcast and channel. I'm your host, Steph Desar, and in today's episode, we are going to explore distorted feminine energy. What is it? How can you identify with it? And how can you liberate from distorted feminine energy into divine feminine energy? Before I get started, don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. On YouTube, it's Divine Feminines. We're also on all major podcast platforms. That's Apple, Spotify, and Google. You can catch us on Instagram and TikTok, and that's Divine Feminines with a Z at the end. Why like and subscribe this channel where we drop content, a new episode every Friday, and we also talk about moon magic, moon manifestation, divine feminine, divine masculine, balancing the energies, twin flame journey, high vibrational soul connections, the new earth, the new blueprint for love, how we can be our best selves. I mean, there's something in it for all of us. So it's for guys and gals, so there is no discrimination here. So, distorted feminine energy, right? You guys know, guys and girls know, that this podcast is called Divine Feminines, and the whole concept of me calling it Divine Feminines was to encourage, to empower, and to inspire the rising up of the divine feminine within everybody, within humanity, within oneself, but also the divine feminine energy that is able to rise within each and every one of us, because we all embody masculine and feminine energy. Now, it's no surprise with, as you guys know, how the earth is awakening and how we are raising to higher levels of consciousness and raising our frequency. The earth's vibration, the earth's frequency is increasing. You know what it's been like for most of 2022. We've had some massive solar flares, electromagnetic waves, like from the sun, expansive energy coming in, really high vibrational energy. It's had taken quite a toll on us, both physically, mentally. I know on my physical body, I get a lot of what we call maybe ascension symptoms, but also with those solar flares and those electromagnetic waves, it does create, that feeling in our physical body. But ultimately, it's not just about our physical body. We are really tuning in to our internal being, which is our soul, and doing that soul work to come up, to rise up, to embody higher consciousness. And so this is all supporting that movement. And the most important aspect of this journey is finding that deeper purpose, right? And for feminines, particularly women, but it's also for men, but particularly women, there is a deeper purpose at this time to bring that divine feminine energy back into its rightful position, where it needs to be, because over hundreds of thousands of years it has lost its place in society, in the world, on earth, because of man-made changes, because of the ego, because of manipulation, because of control. So as I was saying, it has completely lost its spot because of all of this, divide and conquer, separation, control, power, and a patriarchal system over years and years and years that has pushed the feminine energy and feminine lineages, much lower down in society, and not giving it its place that it deserves and the respect. And so there's a lot of work for, it's not just saying, oh, we need to kind of have this women's movement and let's start giving opportunities to women. That's great, don't get me wrong, like women can drive in Iran or Saudi Arabia, wherever it is, or women can now vote and women can do this. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's great that that's happening, but changing some laws does not mean that feminine energy in its divine capacity is rising. That's just giving, changing rules, changing society type dynamics. There is a fundamental need right now, and that need is to bring not just into balance that feminine energy so that it is in balance with the masculine, because right now, and where we've come from, what is distorted is because that feminine energy hasn't had its position, and it is evolved, and it's been traumatized, and it's been affected, and it's been suffered, it's been going through suffering, it's been tortured, it's been disrespected, feminines have been raped, been ridiculed, been just treated in such bad ways over many hundreds of thousands of years, let's say, because I think there's been hundreds of thousands of years of the earth. Whoever wants to say how many ever thousands of years that the earth's been around, I think it's been around for a very long time. Don't even want to quote, but as long as that, you know, man came to really create capitalism and to create class systems and society and business and a system of money and a system of, you know, you need to be a certain way, a system that society needs to operate in. Let's call it the MF matrix, because I don't want to swear, but we know that is this, you know, I was reading the other day, I really liked this meme. It was talking about Earth, and it said, you know, Earth had students visit Earth, but unfortunately, we're all students on Earth. Unfortunately, the bad students, let's call them the bad students, wanted to come and take advantage of that and create a system to push down the other students, because we're all students, we're all souls living human experience. Ain't no one better than anyone. I don't care how much money you've got, I don't care what you do for a living, I don't care what car you drive, I don't care what you look like or what your makeup looks like or what your flipping Botox looks like. That's all distortion. Yeah, I said it. And those things mean nothing, because we're all souls living a human experience. But the students that were the bad ones wanted to come and create a system that they could control, and that they could then be the rulers and not be the students anymore. The earth doesn't quite like that one. So for any of those students that went off into that direction, the earth doesn't want them anymore. So however way they're going, their energy is changing, they're being purged, whichever way that vibration needs to be purged is going. Those systems are collapsing, and we will see more and more of that coming. The new earth is already underway, it's already here. If you say to me, when people are saying to me, Steph, where are you? I'm like, I'm in the new earth. It doesn't matter what part of the world I'm in the new earth, because that's the paradigm I live in, that's the timeline I'm in. And it's the frequency I embody. And so when you embody that frequency and that resonance, you are attracting the same like-minded, like resonance, like frequency levels, signatures, right? And that is the new earth. So coming back to distorted feminine energy, it's not just about balancing it with the masculine, it's really bringing it to a place of healing. There is going to be a real need to like heal this energy and liberate it, and there are a lot of behaviors, patterns, traditions, ways of doing things that have been done for so long that they've kind of probably, you know, they're seen as accepted, they're seen as that's the norm, but it's really actually going, no, what is it? Why do we do this? And I'm going to go through some of these now, but like things like wearing loads of makeup, having a feeling of emptiness, dressing a certain way, trying to please an external, really being soul lost, like that requires a lot of work. It's not going to come from governments or society going, we're going to let women do this, we're going to give women a fair share at the C-suite level in boardrooms, because that's still not happening. If we look at some of that, those figures are changing, but they're not really changing. I can say that, I witness it all the time. So it's and then, you know, women get caught into the whole thing of, I have to play the patriarchal system to be able to go far, but that's still distortion. So we'll come into this, but let's look at, you know, everything has light and dark, and so the distorted feminine energy can be released from its dark side, its shadow, let's call it the shadow. It's not dark feminine. I've covered the topic of dark feminine. Dark feminine isn't a bad trait. Distorted feminine, though, is what we need to liberate from on this earth. I have done a lot of work in myself to release a lot of my distorted feminine, and that's why I called the channel Divine Feminines. This is why I'm starting to really talk about this more and more now, because I know that it's needed. I know that my fellow sisters out there need to hear this message and have the power. You all have the power to do this. You all have the power within yourselves, inside, to liberate. Yes, it's not easy, but identifying and realizing that there is a need to do this work, and that it will be part of the creation of what we're doing, and that you can be here with me. Like, you can literally be here with me, and it's a good space where I am. And I know a lot of people that follow the podcast or see me on my socials and stuff, I'm just really real and authentic. I'm not here to front or fake nothing. But a lot of people are like, I've had people say, I want to be on your wavelength, or I wish I was in your realm, or I wish I had your strength. You can have it all. I didn't just get this overnight. I committed to myself to do this. So let's look at the meaning of distortion. Distortion is basically taking something and twisting it to what it isn't anymore. So you could even say like a face, taking a face and then a normal standard face, and then making a distortion is almost like putting the nose over here and the mouth over here, right? Like that is not a normal face. So that's what we mean by distortion. And the distorted feminine is exactly this. It's an unnatural and twisted version of our true feminine nature in this world. And actually it competes with the subverts of our true, authentic, natural feminine nature and attributes, right? Because this distorted feminine is so pervasive, we can actually confuse the healthy and distorted energies quite easily. And I'm going to be real, like I have friends, and I have friends and I know people, and I can quite easily identify where the distortions are, but it's not for me to point to it. I'm a very direct person, and I'll ask questions like, why are you doing Botox on your face? Like, why do you need it? Or, you don't need to wear makeup. And then I get the response, I know I don't need to, but I like to. But then I'm like, but how come you're always wearing it though? So I will ask questions, but it's not my place to point. I know that the work needs to be done, and I want the feminines around me, I want my sisters to feel empowered, but at the same time, confidence does not come from other things. Confidence comes from shining your inner beauty, from accepting yourself for who you are. Now, I'm going to go through some traits of distorted feminine aspects that you might come across. And this may help you if you're on the journey to trying to figure out what part of me is distorted, where do I need to do the work, what is it that I need to sort of face, look in the mirror, what I've been calling the mirrorverse. Our inner reality reflects our outward world, right? So what is it that we're seeing in the mirror? Because whatever we see in the mirror is a reflection of what's going on in here. So if we don't like what we see in the mirror, then we need to go in here and work that out, right? So number one is the inner emptiness. The distorted feminine is ultimately the traumatized part of our feminine self, and it has been separated from love and any genuine form of personal power, right? She is empty, hollowed by her own suffering and invisibility. She has endured so much trauma, like gone through lines of ancestry and millennia of abuse, of rape, of loss of status, of respect, and even her rightful voice. A lot of feminines are having to activate those throat chakras in today's new earth, right? Really speaking their truth. And they're not just speaking the truth for themselves, they're doing it for like their ancestors, for the feminines in their family. Like, it's a big deal. So sometimes it doesn't just feel like there's a lot more to it, right? And that's why it might feel even harder to do, but it's even more powerful when you do it, right? Because it's healing these family lines. Generations of not being loved or embraced and seen or heard by others. Like, she has been made invisible and deliberately was made invisible so that patriarchy could rise. And she is the result of patriarchal trauma. She is the result of that. The distorted feminine was born of that patriarchy. And I've spoken about my marriage before. I was married before, and I was married to a very loving person, a very kind, loving soul. But unfortunately, what I didn't realize was there were so many things I unveiled afterwards, but I was playing out a patriarchal sort of instance. And so me leaving that marriage and liberating myself and coming, I didn't just leave. I had to find myself. I had to realize that I was so lost. I had to realize that I'm actually in my distortion. I had to realize a lot of things, and then it made a lot more sense that as I was deciding to liberate from that relationship, that I was not just liberating from that marriage and deciding that it wasn't just a divorce. it was a massive change in my family line. I was healing patriarchy of women that was feeling suppressed, that got married or felt that they had to get married for safety, or were forced into these things and didn't want to stay there, weren't in love, were soul lost, were depressed, were suppressed, was everything. So by me doing what I did, like literally I remember having a session and there was a crown being put on my head by my ancestors with flowers, really proud of the work that I'd done. So know that, my sisters, when you're listening to this and when you're kind of, connecting with what I'm saying, this is going to be healing decades behind us, but healing future generations. We are going to impact the generations of the feminines that come from our womb line, right? That come directly from our own children, but from the generations to follow, because we're all connected, we are all one. And a distorted feminine energy cannot connect or feel the beauty of her soul or her presence. She has suffered soul loss. She's lost any sight of like who she really is, and fragments of soul are merely left, and those fragments are quite traumatized. They are in pain. They are lonely. They are just, unfortunately, in a really bad way. If you had to say what room would it be in a hospital, A&E, right? And that then makes you think, oh my gosh, no, that's a serious thing, right? It's serious. So being ultimately empty, and she can only survive by draining the love and attention of others. And so for any of you that, listening, ask yourself, have I been needy? Have I been needing to have friends around me? Like, oh, I need that friend, I need this person, I need this partner, I need this family member, because I can't do it on my own. That feeling of I can't do it on my own, I'm gonna need someone, I need that. Even if that person isn't ultimately good for us, but it's just knowing that we can kind of take that energy from them. It makes us feel safe, but actually it's not a real true meaning of safety, because safety comes from within. So when you're looking for it externally, you're not actually cultivating true, authentic safety within your soul. So there is a term actually called by George Cavasilas, and he calls it the Hollow Queen, is in the archetype of that soul lost feminine. So number 2 is the outer shows of beauty, and I think this is so prevalent right now, and I really feel for the younger generations, because they are also experiencing it. Social media has put so much pressure, and it's made it even harder now. But the distorted feminine is unable to connect with her inherent beauty, and so she measures her value through outward appearance. She invests heavily in making a display of her beauty in externalized forms. She is obsessed by her makeup, hair, and latest trends. Now, look, I know what you're thinking. You're going, yeah, but I want to look good. Yeah, okay. This is the bit. We all want to look good. You see me. You might see my socials. I like to dress nicely. I like to dress in a way that makes me feel good and everything. But you'll also see that I don't wear makeup, and I keep myself very simple. And I've been doing that work, and I gave up makeup in 2019. I stopped wearing it. I've worn makeup twice this year because a friend of mine is a makeup artist, and we went away, and I was like, all right, you can put a little bit on my face. But even when I did it, I'll be honest, I was like, oh, this is not me. Do you know what I mean? It looked nice. Don't get me wrong, it looked nice. And I do understand why, if you're on screen, or if you're having a wedding or a big event, it's nice to have a bit of makeup, it kind of catches you up. But when you're so dependent on it, and when it's just your life, if you're looking for that to make you feel lifted, then you are never going to feel lifted, because that is an external thing. It's just like, oh, if I wear a certain outfit, or if I do a certain thing to my body, then I'm going to feel better. If I put lip fillers or whatever, Botox, a lot of girls wear, look, I've got braids in mine now, right? So don't get me wrong, girls and sisters, my hair is probably up to here, and I wanted my braids to be longer, and part of me did say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be putting like some fake hair in my hair, but for me, I was like, no, that's okay, because I know who I am. and I know what I'm about, and I'm not about, you know, wearing lots of different things to cover who I really am. I don't wear all this makeup. I'm still very natural in myself. And actually, I would have just braided my hair as it was in its own way, but it probably would have come out quicker and wouldn't have lasted this trip. So it was part of it was more of a durable, practical decision, because I didn't have to bloody wash my hair for so long, right? So, but because I know that anyone listening would be like, well, what about you, Steph, and what about that? But everything here in this face is natural, everything. And I'm zooming in and not wearing any makeup so you can see. And I do that all the time because I know that I'm a living, breathing, walking role model to all the feminines and anyone that like tunes into the channel. So it's important for me to really embody what I feel is the right message, not just through my words but through my physical appearance as well. So, you know, this outer shows of beauty, you know, she's tricked, you know, the distorted feminine is tricked by the synthetic and cruelty unattainable images of desirable womanhood. Like all of these BBLs, these women, I'm not even going to get into it because most of the women that you see in Hollywood are not even women, they're actually men, and that's a whole nother story, because it's called inversion, and a lot of them are actually silicone men built up as women. And I'm not even going to say most of the names that you see and all of these women that you follow, you're following a man. Yeah, you're following a man. And you think that that's beauty? That's a man that's been silicone built. And that's a lot of what's out there. And this is why those things are real illusions, and they are really messing up with people's heads right now. So, you know, when the distorted feminine is unable to reach these impossible standards that are out there, that are on TV and everything, and, you know, people putting 25,000 filters on their face. I get it, you put one filter, but then people are just like filtering and just doing the most amount of things. This is just, you're seeing something that's not even real anymore, right? It's just not real. Yeah, that's why when I film these videos, I just film them. Then nothing gets done to them. Literally, they get filmed. The audio gets stripped by my music producer, my producer of the podcast, and he just alters the sound for audio for the podcast platform. YouTube just goes up raw. There is no edits to this unless I make a blip or make a mistake. You know, some of that gets cut out, but that's it. That is it. And that is one of the reasons why I said, no, I need to be on here showing my face on YouTube, because that's going to really help. That is part of, because I was doing it only audio before. And so this is another reason why I brought it with my face and doing this in like real life, right? But, you know, so it's really hard, because when the distorted feminine can't reach those standards, or tries to, but then feels like she fails even more, and she feels more lower self-esteem. She feels more, and a lot of women will have a lot of problems around this solar plexus area, this stomach area. So, you know, problems with eating, digestion, lots of stuff, pains in the stomach. Even when it's their time of their cycle, they get a lot of pain there, because connected to the tummy and the womb, this is our place of real personal power and creativity. And when we're in our distorted feminine energy, this place is not in a good place. You know, digestion's really bad, or eating behaviors are bad, or just getting a lot of cramps and pains, and just feeling anxiety in these areas. That's what will be manifesting. And so if anyone resonates with that, then that might be a bit of a sign for you. You know, the aspect of the distorted feminine shows up for women across the board. It's everywhere. But for the younger generation of women, the Instagram generation, like I said, particularly the pressures of social media, digital image, and web pornography. And this is another thing. I mean, pornography is one of the most lowest vibrational things. And I'll be honest, I was young once, and we were all curious. We looked at it, you know, and I didn't realize how low vibrational it was at the time. As I kind of, you know, dabbled with it, looked at it, friends looked at it, we'd laugh, we'd giggle, whatever. But later on, as I was becoming more in tune with myself, those things, I didn't even think about like those things. And then I realized, oh, I'm not drawn to even think about it, or to talk about it, or to look at it, or anything, because actually it is not real, it's not healthy, it's a pressure, it's not good. So that whole industry in itself, I mean, I can't stand the industry of pornography, of gambling, of alcoholism, of tobaccoism. Let me not get started, because when people speak to me and I go into restaurants, they're like, so what are you going to eat? And I'm like, just nothing that touches an animal. I don't want no alcohol, I don't want no coffee, I don't want anything that's going to alter. Like, I just want to be as pure as possible. And people think, oh, I have people say to me, that's not fun. I'm like, oh, so you think what you're doing is fun? Okay, you don't quite get it yet, do you? And the third one is eternal youth, but people don't even believe my age. And it's because I'm looking after myself. It's because I'm doing all these things, because it's not just what you do to your physical body, it's also your mental body and your internal self. So it's important. And I think women, you know, are getting more and more pressures about, you know, terrified of the physical process of aging. Okay, you know, I'm gonna be real with you guys. I see a little crinkle here when I smile and I'm like, oh, but it's okay. Like, I know that that's me aging, but I'm just embracing it, and I just look after my skin. I make sure I eat well, and I do things that are natural ways and methods, and I know that, you know, eventually I am gonna age, and I'm not scared about that. I'm not scared of any of it, but unfortunately, the distorted feminine, she's unable to place herself as a soul going through a sacred and natural cycles of life. The one constant thing in life is change, and so we do have to age. And this is why it really kind of upsets me, and I think it's not right when women are like, oh well, you know, I'll start doing the fillers and the Botox now because it's an investment for when I'm 40 and I'm 50. And I'm like, well, why don't you want to actually look your age when you're that age? I love saying to people when they don't believe my age, and I say, but I'm natural and I've got nothing going on, I've not altered anything, you know, this is just me. So then I can be proud of it, you know, and that in itself gives you power. That gives you self-esteem. That gives you power that like no one else can have, right? I've been in situations where I've walked into rooms and the girls in there are mostly modified with some kind of body modification, some sort of surgery, and I can feel their insecurities, and there's me, all natural, in my power, with my confidence, and I feel like sometimes I get watched quite a lot, and then I'm like, yeah, because you're not. You might look like you could be the confident one because you've tried to make yourself look confident, but you're not confident. You lack all confidence. Comes from within. You tried to go buy it off a fucking surgery table. Oh, I swore. But I'm passionate about this because I feel that this is one that is a really big one, and we really need to help our feminines. We really need to help our sisters and our daughters, because it's not going to get any easier. This is what they've put on the screen, and they're using men to demonstrate it, pretending to be women, which is even worse. You know, so the distorted feminine is obsessed with eternal youth and all of the possible means of attaining it, because her attention and obsession is on an external appearance only. So the process of aging slows her inner emptiness more starkly and cruelly, because if you're still focusing on that, you're not focusing on this internal, right? So it's never gonna go away. Like, eventually you're gonna get there and you're gonna be like, this is not right. So the next one's seduction and bewitchment. The distorted feminine, feeling empty and unworthy of love, is genuinely terrified that her inner emptiness will be uncovered. So she's really scared to be caught out for the emptiness, the empty feeling. And so she cannot risk intimacy or vulnerability. So she might hide, pull back, not really give her full self, not really show up with her full self because of that fear. And she is therefore the mistress of magic and seduction and glamour and guile. Like, you know, oh, you can't put your finger on her kind of thing. But it's because she's keeping herself held back. And she protects this false and idealized image of herself into the world. And that's what she's protecting, right? So the type of seduction is woven through the astral plane, and, you know, often involving the pineal gland manipulation and mind control and entrapment. And look, I'll be honest, I think I did that. I definitely was there at some point in my younger years particularly, but I think a lot of women you might not want to say this, but I think we've all done it. And, you know, we want that other person to fall in love. So when the victim falls in love, often at first sight, seeing her as the embodiment of perfect womanhood. So the next one's around seduction and bewitchment. The distorted feminine, she protects herself, you know, because she's feeling empty and unworthy of love. She genuinely doesn't want anyone to tap into the fact that she has that. So she cannot risk the intimacy and the true vulnerability that you actually need to have in a proper connected relationship, partnership, connection, friendship. So she's therefore a mistress of magic and seduction and glamour and guile. There's an elusiveness. She doesn't really give herself in, and she projects this false idealized image of herself, like she's got it together and everything. But she then sort of will pull back, and this type of seduction can be woven through the astral plane because it's a frequency, and it can also be tapped into the actual pineal gland. This is like mind control manipulation, and I'll be honest, guys, like I think that I was definitely doing it and not realizing I was doing it, because it was a sense of like I needed to be wanted. And I think a lot of women out here have done this. And then once that other person, say in a romantic situation, falls in love, often at first sight sees her as like perfect embodiment, because they can see her as this perfect person, because that's what she's showing off, this kind of false image. It's a mask. You know, we say that the divine masculine wears a mask, but so has the divine feminine. The divine feminine's probably been wearing a huge mask in many, many ways, and it's a distorted. And then, you know, the other person gets completely like taken in by the distorted feminine and is almost like a believer of this false mask. And like I said, feminines have been wearing masks just as much as the masculine. So when feminines say, oh, the masculine needs to take off the mask, have you taken off your mask? Are you fully out of your distortion? Because you're more than likely pointing at that, but you need to take off, you need to come out of yours. And I think a lot of women that pick up men as well, actually it's a projection of what they need to pick up in themselves and sort the F out. And I'm saying it, I'm here as a woman, but I'm also saying, women, wake up, come on, come with me, like be over here, you can do it, right? And you know, the state is often confused with genuine love. So the guy will say, be so drawn in, and you know, he's just so kind of, it's almost like this fake kind of love, but it's like an obsession. Can't get the girl out of his head and everything. And she's kind of got, he's got compulsive thoughts, and she's kind of got him in this wrap, right? Now, this is not to be confused with the twin flame journey, because some of that genuinely does happen, and there is this intensity, and two people, and like with genuine love, there can be an intensity and a feel of like, oh my gosh, this is my one, this is like a divine counterpart, and you will feel those things. It's when it's being controlled by manipulation and mind control and these other distortions that it's not in its natural state, and it's not being, it's not happening naturally. There's a control behind it because of these masks. And you know, the state is often confused with genuine love. Like, and our media and music industry are the worst. They promote this version of sexual obsession and romantic fantasy as an idealized love state. It's terrible. Like, can't get you out of my head, that's Kylie Minogue. Can't live without you, Mariah Carey. These songs are not healthy. I don't listen to those kind of songs anymore. Like, I'm very conscious about the lyrics in songs, because that's all promoting distorted feminine energy. And I do feel that media and music, they know exactly what they're doing, because they've been doing it for years, hundreds of years. The next one is vampirism. I was about to say vampirization, and what the heck is that? And codependency. So, you know, the distorted feminine has a wounded and incomplete sense of her personal and sexual power. So her emptiness means that she needs to fill herself with emotional sexual energy of others. So she's like, it's almost like my cup's empty, but I'm going to go around and try and get as much as I can from everyone else's cup. So, you know, while seduction is one way of bringing that energy in, she also will thrive on sexual and emotional entanglement. So drama, entanglement, weaving in, attaching herself to situations to thrive off, you know, those emotional energies, and it's needed for, basically, it's needed for her to kind of boost her own personal power. You know, you can give an example of someone just kind of entangling themselves in friends situations and stuff like that, to feel like they need to make a point, like to be there, to have a place. But actually, it's false. You don't need to be in that. You don't even need to entangle yourself into that, right? So again, you know, this creates deep energetic and emotional entanglement, where obsession, jealousy, codependency, they all strike up, they all show their face. And the irony is that often the person who is being drained by this distorted feminine energy will think that the vampire is actually the person they need to complete themselves. So a pervasive and toxic connect in itself is not healthy at all, right? And the distorted feminine may create similar bonds through non-sexual relationships. So this is what I was saying, it can happen with friends. It happens a lot of distorted feminine energy gets spread around other friends and with other feminines, and it affects those feminines because they're already in a distortion, or it's not helping them. Colleagues, even parents, as a way to continually connect to and harvest vital force of others. So, you know, being able to thrive off others. And that's why I notice sometimes people struggle to be on their own, or they say, oh, you know, and then they keep going to see friends and things like that. And it's like, oh, no, because I like to socialize. Ask yourself, are you really filling your cup yourself? And when you do go and see others, are you definitely not sort of draining on their water supply, let's say, their life force supply? Because if that's the case, then you need to kind of look at it again, because you might be fobbing yourself off and saying, actually, I'm doing it because I need to see my friends, or I want to socialize and I want to go out and I want to be around friends. You might even be telling yourself a lie because you don't want to admit that you're so empty. And I'm just saying this because it's better you hearing it from maybe a complete stranger, because you probably don't know me, and I really just want to speak truth and help you to see the truth and liberate from all that is holding you back. So the final one is around competition and patriarchal status, and this is another thing. Like, a lot of feminines will compete with each other just in life, just not even feminines, but we all are so competitive, and that's just a distortion in itself, because we don't need to be. There's enough for us to all go, for everyone. But the distorted feminine feels her emptiness so keenly, she cannot perceive any self-value in uniqueness or individual expression. So she needs to be known or attached to a group or a social circle or something, and she can only measure her value through competition and comparison to regards with others. And this is a hard one. I personally probably will resonate with this the most, as something that I really had to my ego had to get shaken with, because it's hard. I work in a corporate industry, and it's easy to kind of get drawn into that and drawn into the positions that going into higher ranks. I worked in organizations where hierarchy was quite stern, and when you're at the top of the hierarchy, you're not supposed to be like talking to others in the lower part of the hierarchy, and all of this and entertaining it, and it's a lot, right? And it's not healthy. And so when the feminine submits to that, it's not good either, because it's not helping her liberate from the distortion. And she's seduced by status, recognition, money, and power. I tell you, this was my weakness. I definitely was pulled into that, especially in my career. I didn't realize, but there was a benevolent part of me that was really after that. Although I enjoy my career and I love it, there was an ego part of me that was being pulled in that direction. So I'm putting my hands up, and I'm going to say that this was something that I had to really face in myself, and I'm glad I have, because it's not something that we can put up with in society, not for the feminines. So this whole thing about getting to the top and give space for women at the top in the modern day, she particularly will want to crave those roles and positions to get to the top or get accepted. But we need to make this a more healthy dynamic, that it's not about that anymore. It's not about, and this is how I am right now in the way I am. Like, I'm not going to follow anyone's orders to get to any top position. I don't think I did anyway, but you have to play a certain game, right, when it's in these kind of systems. but at the same time, I speak my truth and I do things in a certain way, and I want to bring holistic healing, love, openness to everyone that I'm working with, and to empower everyone. So I bring my essence, I bring my true soul's essence into my actual work capacity, and that's the difference. Rather than following what is being told of me, yes, I respect the organization I'm in, but I bring my true essence, and that's the difference here. So it's important because there's so much competition, even in politics, performing arts, fashion and business. There's all this competing, who's at the top, who's in this position, who's doing what. So to the outside observer, she may be viewed as someone as, she's a strong feminine, she's a boss, like they say this a lot, boss babe, boss woman, boss lady, whatever. But actually, you've got to be careful, because that can be seen as just actually following the system of patriarchy. So if she's doing that, then that's a distortion. But if she's actually rising up, and there's a lot of women that have come out of like jobs and set up their businesses doing healing work, different forms of holistic modalities, those are like real liberated women, boss females, really doing this. Me doing my podcast, I'm here, I'm saying, I am going to do something that is going to make a difference in this world, right? And it's going to speak truth, and it's going to liberate, and it's going to liberate me at the same time. So, in addition, she does nothing to challenge the patriarchal order, the distorted feminine, is what I'm saying. So she is empty, and she becomes part of a machine, and she kind of gets sucked into it. And there's a lot of feminines that do get sucked into it and go, I can't do this anymore, I can't. And there's so many stories like, I need to get out of here, I need to change my career path, I need to maybe find a different method. And so if you're feeling that, then this might be a sign, it might be a message. You may have experienced that and you've kind of come out of it and you feel so much more liberated. But again, that's another part of the distortion that can play out, and therefore, her overall effect in the world is to actually alienate herself and others from the natural feminine power and self-love and personal sovereignty that she actually does have, but is not able to relish and embrace and bring to the forefront of her essence, because she's not able to connect with the true essence of her soul. So I hope that these areas of the distorted feminine energy and certain examples are helpful to you. I would encourage you to take notes for yourself, ask yourself questions, ask yourself, how do you feel? How did you feel when you listened to some of what I said? Did it trigger you? Did it kind of make you? So as you've listened to this episode, ask yourself, is there anything that Steph said that actually resonates, or I feel like, I need to kind of dig a bit deeper there, and am I holding some distorted energies? I'll be honest with you, I think most of the feminines here on earth right now have some form of distortion. There are feminines that are really rising up, that are really releasing all of it. There are, but there is still some that are kind of like doing part of it, and then they're still holding on to some distortion. So ask yourself, and this is why I did this, what is it that I've liberated, but what is it that I'm holding on to that is still distorted, and what can I do within myself? I'm going to do another episode, and it's going to talk about how we can liberate and find, the natural woman archetype, really aligned to being the natural woman, the divine feminine. What is it that we can do to kind of liberate from the distortion? And it's work, and it's going to take time. I was talking to a friend today, and she really said to me, I'm so proud of you, that you are really in your true soul's essence, emanating that divine feminine energy. And as I said that, she's just messaged me. I normally put my phone on do not disturb. May, I love you, girl. That's Vibe with May. You can follow her on Instagram. It's at Vibe with May, and she talks loads of great stuff, very connected to what I'm doing. And she's another rising feminine who I truly admire and love, who's really, releasing her distortions, liberating more and more each day, and she's just rising up. And I'm just so glad that I have these sisters, and shout out to my other soul sister, Joy, who, as you guys know, is part of this podcast, and you've heard of her in the past, who has really done some amazing work to really liberate herself from distortions and continues to do so and just shine her light. So I hope that this helps. I'm going to do another episode on how we can liberate this, but I thought, let's just talk about the distortion so you can go away and just think about it first. And then I'm going to do another episode to cover off how we can start to bring healing into these areas and liberate into the natural woman, into the divine feminine with her light and dark feminine energy that I've spoken about already. All right, so don't forget to like and subscribe this channel. It's getting dark here, so I do have to wrap up because you're probably not going to see me afterwards. But I want to say I appreciate you all. Thank you for listening. Sending you lots of love, light, peace, and abundance. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Till next time.